I'm Adam Sessler, X-Play, G4TV.com, all that stuff. Thank you. This panel I wanted to moderate because I've kind of been in love with Ratchet and Clank since pretty much the first Ratchet and Clank, and I think reviewed every single game except for maybe Deadlock because it came out at a different time of the year and I was busy. But so when I suddenly realized at the announcement of Gamescom that suddenly there's this co-op game and how awesome and obvious and all at the same time, like, I hadn't thought of that. That's great. And so now we are going to look at Ratchet and Clank All for One. I want to introduce this panel of illustrious Insomniac folk. We have Chad Dezern, studio director for Insomniac North Carolina. Sean McCabe, he is the production director, also at North Carolina. TJ Fixman, he is the senior writer. He also worked on Crack in Time, which I will once again say publicly, I had just awesome writing in it, and I just played it. It was laughing hard the second playthrough. And good friend Jane Stevenson, the senior community manager, and I think who's tied with me for the most panels at PAX, appearing at them.
It's good to be at the top with you this time.
Exactly, so it's good. But before we get into the game altogether, this is the first game announced out of the North Carolina studio, and obviously you guys have been situated in Burbank for quite some time, and I didn't know who wants to answer, why North Carolina?
Yeah, sure, I'll talk about that. I mean, really what it came down to was kind of simple. We just wanted to make more games as a studio. And at the same time, we didn't want to grow the team in Burbank past the size that it is right now, because we're kind of at a magic number. The team in Burbank is a size where everybody can kind of know what's going on with the game, everybody can collaborate and share information, and that's really important for us in the way we do things. So, we started out with a core group of longtime Insomniacs, and then we made the move to the East Coast and added a lot of new people who are bringing, good new ideas to what we're doing.
Are you also finding that there's because obviously Epic Games is out in the Raleigh area, but you also have Duke University, you have UNC, you have some great schools. I mean, are you finding that you can draw from a pool of talent that maybe doesn't tend to travel all the way out to live on the West Coast?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, completely. Like you mentioned, they have Duke, Wake Forest is nearby, UNC, NC State. It's just the effect that those universities have on the community just means that there is a lot of local talent. Like I'd say, like half of the folks that we've got there were locals.
Is it different working in North Carolina than Burbank? Not so much because you're separated, but just you're in a different part of the country.
Well, it's definitely a different place to live. It's certainly not LA, but at the same time, it's not a backwater. I mean, it's got everything that you'd ever want, and it's definitely got a lot going for it as a place to live. And in terms of the way the studios work together, I mean, we're still in really close touch with everybody in Burbank. We have all kinds of solutions for getting people on the phone or teleconferencing whenever we need to ask a question or rely on somebody else's expertise. So that part of it has actually gone really smoothly. Like a lot of times I feel like we are actually still in the same office, even though we're across the country.
So when you guys went down there, were you already thinking that, okay, we're going to do All for One, we're going to do that 4-player co-op Ratchet game, or did you kind of get there going, what do we do? Oh, let's do a 4-player co-op Ratchet game.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, actually, the co-op Ratchet title is something that we've been talking about for a long time. So, it's first a game that we've wanted to make. It seems natural, just as a kernel of something to let Ratchet and Clank play together. And also it's something that our fans have been asking for a long time. So it was definitely on our minds, right?
I mean, it goes back to like this thing that we used to say, and we used to joke about it. It is Ratchet and Clank. Like, why? It would be so cool to play these characters together. And really, like, I mean, I remember talking as far back as during Ratchet Future 1, wanting to do this kind of thing, and how cool it would be to get to play those two characters together.
Yeah.
I mean, once you kind of, I can't remember which the first game was, where, Clank, you would play him independently. I mean,
right.
That must have been the spark of the kernel, like, ooh, we could expand this into something.
Yeah.
So, TJ, I'm going to throw this to you. Ratchet and Clank, and to some extent Captain Qwark, working together, that makes sense. But no, we also have Dr. Nefarious, and I know that you're working on the story, and this is a game with quite a bit of story. If you wouldn't mind setting the stage for how all four of them suddenly have to work in concert with one another.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the game is basically about. It takes place after the events of A Crack in Time, of course, and Ratchet and Clank are they're sort of out of the hero business, and Qwark has found himself as Galactic President because of course he's got to fail upwards, and Dr. Nefarious, who survived the events of A Crack in Time, basically throws into action this plot to kill Qwark. And right when the plan goes horribly, horribly wrong, they get kidnapped by a giant, seemingly autonomous drone that we're calling the Creature Collector that basically scoops them up and takes them to an alien planet far away where they're basically forced to work together. So Dr. Nefarious is in no way friends with Qwark, Ratchet, or Clank. He is forced basically to work with him in order to survive. But it lends itself to a lot of fun comedy for us because there are these four characters that really should not be friends at all, but now they have to work together and fight their way through this alien planet.
I guess for those who are loyal, I just finished Crack in Time. I mean, how do you sort of resurrect Dr. Nefarious for the second time after? He really looked like he wasn't coming back after that game.
Yeah, I know. Well, thankfully, that was sort of built in for us because Dr. Nefarious and Lawrence always had teleportation technology, and we knew about halfway through the game that there was no way we could kill the most beloved villain in our series. So for the fans that actually stayed through the credits, we definitely hinted at it by having a radio broadcast that suggested that he was never found. The events in the comic book, we talked about how he's been alive and sort of what he's been doing. So it ended up working out for us.
Actually, let's talk about the comic book. I believe the first one is coming out next week or very, very soon.
Yeah, I think it's September 8th.
And who's working on it? I assume you're involved in the writing somehow.
Yeah, I'm writing it for DC Wildstorm. Adam Archer, who was a new artist, he's writing. He's doing all the artwork for it. It's phenomenal. It's sort of a different style than we have artistically in the past, but he did a phenomenal job of bringing his humor into the art. So we're very excited about it. It's going to be 6 issues. We'll see what happens.
Is it just going to fill in the gaps from the end of Crack in Time to the beginning of All for One?
It takes place a little bit after a Crack in Time and sort of bridges into All for One, but I wanted it to be independent so that the player didn't have to play the game in order to understand what's going on. Like it could bring in new fans that maybe aren't as exposed to Ratchet and Clank before. So it'll definitely pay off the fans that play both Crack in Time and All for One, but it's not something that is required reading.
You're also going in some new territory with the narrative. Ratchet's caught up in a love triangle.
I don't know if I'd call it I'll call it a love triangle because our fans have always been asking us, where is Sasha, where is Talwin, what's going on with these characters. So there was no way, if given the opportunity to bring them in, that I couldn't do it. So you're going to get to see what's going on with a lot of fan favorites, and Sasha and Talwin will both be in the comic book.
What's it like sort of writing for a much different medium than writing for games? But using the same characters.
Yeah, it's really different, and it was sort of like retraining myself for the panel-by-panel format because we've been used to manipulating things like timing and execution for all our jokes. Like in RCF2 in A Crack in Time, we have Qwark's infamous "You Win Again" technology line, which is the line that will haunt me forever. And we scrubbed back and forth through that scene for weeks and weeks before we got the timing right, before we got the delivery right. You just can't do that in a comic book. Of course, you only get like one shot at it. So that was the big difference in the writing style. So the humor's different, but it's still there. It's still got the same campy, fun Saturday morning cartoon sensibilities as the rest of the stuff.
And I would have to imagine that writing for All for One, you have all the four of these characters. In theory, like they can be on screen all at the same time. They don't really all care for one another. That just would be a blast, especially just for like the ambient dialogue while you're playing the game.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. One of the most fun things for me to do in A Crack in Time was write dialogue for Qwark that would just trigger in gameplay depending on what you would do, and it makes the characters feel alive. And having all four characters, especially with Qwark and Nefarious, who have been nemesis for so long, to have them just kind of bicker back and forth in gameplay, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun, that comedy for me to work with.
Well, I think we've tempted a lot of people. James, are you ready?
Yeah, I think, and just to set this up too, this is the cover for issue 4, which we haven't shown yet, and 2 of the artists in North Carolina who kind of are the key character artists behind Ratchet and Clank have been doing the covers for the comic series, and this is one of the great pieces from Dave Gurton and Greg Baldwin, and really excited how those are coming out, and call your local comic store to get the comics. They should be starting to come out next week.
All right.
So you guys want to see the game?
Yeah. Oh, really? Oh, I have no...